It's
So yesterday we went through the Derish over
exactly what we were
here.
talking
We're
about.
just
But we
gonna
were
go
talking about
back
a student's
to some
mitzvah.
of what we already did yesterday, and just gonna backtrack for a minute on a few of the ideas we're talking about over here, using microphones, using Zoom, using phones to listen and to fulfill your obligation from Megilah, the complex area of halacha. So we looked up pretty much everything that they quoted. We did skip a few things, some accidentally, some purposely. This Shilos Veteshuvos Minchas Shlomo, we're definitely going to have to go back to that now, more. Not right now, though. We're going to go back to that more. Everything else over here we saw, this Chazon Ish is going to get quoted in there. However, we missed a few things, all right? So that's what we're going to do. First of all, we missed this Mikrei Kodesh. All right, that's just Pesach Frank. We went through the Chuvas for Moshe, and we missed at the end the Shevet Alevi. So let's do the Shevet Alevi first because it is the quickest. He has a Chuva over here. We did this yesterday, but I wanted to correct one thing from yesterday. He says that if you're going to use a microphone, all right, so that's the beginning of destruction. That's basic. Yeah, yeah. And he says the truth is, and I want to go through this last paragraph. I thought it was significant and certainly worthwhile to review again properly, not in a rushed manner. Let's say post facto, someone heard through a microphone. Hayisi mechayvo lishmoya pam beis of bli brach. If someone heard the Megillah when a microphone was being used and there were speakers being used over there, yeah, I would obligate the fella to hear it a second time, the Megillah a second time. However, without a bracha. Why? Kevan de meikar hadin karov sheyitze could be very close to the letter of the law. It could very well be that he's close to fulfilling his obligation. Yeah?
Okay.
V'chein, im yulad metzia shel bittul hakriya legamri. That's why you don't say bracha. You don't say bracha because it could be that you already fulfilled your obligation. Now, v'chein, im yulad metzia shel bittul hakriya. Similarly, if we find over here a actuality of now that you're not going to be able to lain lagamri completely. Imno ali de eitza hanizkarel hayisi dan oda pamba, which means let's say you have a scenario in which either you're going to listen to the Megillah being read if you listen through a microphone and a speaker system, or you're not going to hear it at all. Whatever the case is, that would actually be a possibility. So he says that's already a shiloh. Now we're talking about, we have a halachic question over here. I was never asked about that question.
Want to read it again?
No, if that even works at all. I was never asked that. Yeah, he was asked a microphone versus no microphone. To that, no brainer, no mic. In a regular case, you should not be lenient. This, if it's going to apply that a microphone, excuse me, certainly a telephone and Zoom would in fact be an issue over here. That's the tshuva of the Shevet Alevi. Going back up a little bit, according to the Chazon Ish, as well as Rav Pesach Frank, it would actually work. A lot of different opinions over here. This is in the Sefer Mikrei Kodesh. He says, I was asked the following child. Mikra Megilah alidei machshir magbir kol im yotzeh. Could you listen to the Megillah by using a hearing aid? So it should just be clarified right here, right now. For sure, if someone can't hear at all, unless he's using hearing aid, there's no question there. We're talking about a fella who could hear, but not as well, not as loud, not as clear if he doesn't have the hearing aid. Is that fella obligated to remove the hearing aid, go as close as he possibly could to the person reading the Megillah and listen like that? Or no, he could sit anywhere in the shul where he sits and he's comfortable by using it while using his hearing aid, like he does the rest of the year. He says, "Amarti de lacharya yesh lachalek bein shmias kol shofar leshmias Megillah." One could differentiate between listening to the shofar and listening to the Megillah. Di'im kaireyas Megillah al yedei shefoiferes. if you're going to hear the Megillah through a type of like tube, shahakol mishtan al yidei zenir diyatza, and the voice would change through that, seems like you would actually fulfill your obligation. Ubekagon zeh b'shofer lo yotza. However, when it comes to shofar, one would not fulfill his obligation in this manner.
Are we saying a tube like just to put something in your ears so things
Correct.
can come in?
Like they have
Nothing
it certain,
electronic.
like they have at certain playgrounds. You talk in one thing and then it goes out 40 feet away in the other thing. That type of situation.
So no electronics.
Right, no electronics involved. It's all good old-fashioned tubes. So over here, that what? So he says that he distinguishes even between shofar and Megilah. Shofar would not be good, similar to the echo business. Ra'isi bil Gilyoni Hashas. I saw in the Gilyoni Hashas the Gemara Brachos and Chaf Aleph. Because of the Ishla is stapik b'shmi al yedei davar achir. He wasn't sure. Listening to something by using something else. Could go on, for example, shmias kol shofar Megilah al yedei telephone. For example, if you're listening to a shofar or a Megilah and you're using a phone, yeah? So that became new in these day and ages, he says, yeah? Vehevi alze divrei Shilos Veteshuvos Minchas Yitzchak. So here's the halacha ketanos that a lot of the svarim quote over here. Chelik beisim and mem hey shela cheresh medaber v'nishmei. Let's say you have someone who can hear, but he could talk. Ella al yedei she'oisa kli la'azno kimin chatzoisos. The only way that the fellow could hear is if you use a type of instrument so that he could hear, like a hearing aid situation, yeah? Mahu, what's the halacha? Be'eshiv denira pashat chai b'shofar. He's obligated in shofar. Yeah. We said that if you take it by using something else, that's considered taking. Sukkah lamed zayim. We'll have to wait till we learn that. So to us, if you're using another sort of instrument to hear, it's still considered hearing. No, you got to look into that though. Who says you could compare shofar and Megilah? They're incomparable. Shofar, when it comes to shofar, if you have another type of voice that you hear, invalid, no good. Consequently, if you have a voice that comes out from the phone or a radio, there's a mixture of another type of voice from something else. That would be an issue. But regarding Megilah, I'll tell you, no, it's good. Megilah is good. So we see over here a difference between what? Megilah and shofar. That Megilah would be good, shofar wouldn't, according to him.
What's the raya?
His raya is, this is the halacha ketanos, right? Number one. But
he's stating a fact that they're different, but he didn't bring any raya. I could think of raya.
Who is he, Pesach Frank?
Yeah.
Well, the shofar, you have the tarubas of a kol acher. You can't have that other voice coming in.
Where do we see that? Cheikol
Mishtame actually doesn't apply by Megilah. Actually.
That's what I'm saying.
But he didn't say that. That's correct, but he didn't say that.
So you see that you can have two voices there, whereas
that halacha came famous to us because we learned it on the different Torah somewhere about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just he's stating a fact that he's not bringing any proof to it. But
that was by the intro to Megillah Esther, I think. It was quoted there. Yeah. Okay, so let's continue. Let's see what he says. Kenze Heshavti Hagon Rab Yitzchak Weiss Av Bezdin de Manchester. Right? Diane Weiss. Le'inyan Shmias Kriyas Megilah al Yedei Machoyne Shmiya. There it is, the hearing aid. He goes straight to the cut to the chase over here.
Okay.
Someone who can hear has the status of what? You like listening to an echo. You wouldn't feel your obligation if you heard Torah, shofar, Megillah, Tekiyah, shofar, Megillah. It's not the voice of the Chazan. I said no. I answered they're not in the same league. Hita means accordingly. The truth is, that's what it means. Loy b'chada, not in one machtinayu, in one weaving, in one thread. That which we find in the Mishnah and Gemara, lained shofar regarding shofar. If you did hear the echo, you would not fulfill your obligation. When it comes to shofar, it would be an issue if there's a mixture of another sound, another shofar, or another sound that isn't a shofar. It's a halacha by shofar, apparently. However, when it comes to the laning, or when it comes to the Megilah, at the end of the day, you're hearing the voice of the person who is doing the reading. It's just that it's mixed, another voice is mixed in there. Really, it could very well be the shaper yoitze gam kishemis ariv bo mekol acher. That would be good, even though it's mixed with another voice. Because everything is coming from the strength of the person who is reading. All the voices are kosher, just it has to be coming from the strength of someone who is obligated. That's what it seems like is the halach over here. However, you need to look into this. Now you need to look into this. He says the case of if someone's sitting in a cave and reading the Megilah, and someone is outside and he hears the voice of the reading that's going on. Right? Also, shofar, you fulfill your obligation. But he said, based on the Gemara Mashashana Chavtes, that no, it's just like flying in the air. You wouldn't fulfill your obligation. But he says a bit. Yeah, flying in the air. Poreach ba'avir. Where do you say that? Avir poreach. Hinlo keshim mashmiya. That's a lot of katanas that they quote. The point is that even after he makes this interesting difference between the shofar and the Megilah, he says Sarachi, and you got to look into that more. Take a look at the footnotes. What's the reason? I could explain based on what the Rishonim say. On shofar, the mitzvah is shmiya. Megilah, it's kriya. By shofar, you got to listen. The shmaya kol shofar. By Megilah, it's al mikra Megilah.
So would it be enough community to women?
It's reading, perhaps. Right? So that's why when it comes to shofar, we're going to be more stringent. You got to hear it. When it comes to shofar and you're hearing the echo, if you have another voice, no good, invalid. Even if you're blowing the shofar yourself, if you have another voice, no good. Since the main mitzvah is listening. Look at the Shar Tzion in the Mishnah Berurah in Simin Tavkuf Pei Zayin Osid Dalet, who writes V'dad de Mesif Ze Mevur the Dina de Kol Havara Shaycha Afilu Inyan Atukei Ba'atzma. We see from this sif that the halachas of the echoes when it comes to shofar is applicable even to the person who is blowing the shofar himself. V'tayim de Melsu, what's the reasoning? The mitzvah shofar hu hashmiya v'loy hatkiya. The mitzvah of shofar is listening and not the blowing. Moshe Kasav, Harosh, Perik Dalet, Siman Hey, like the Rosh writes, Masha Inkin. Looks like they're missing the, what do you call those things? The two dashes?
The quotes of the other one.
Not the quotes, two dashes at the top. Masha Inkin, when it makes a small word of full. Whatever the thing, it's missing the things over here. Conversely, when it comes to Megilah, the mitzvah is a kriya. The gam is the reading. The gam hashamei ma'akar yoitzi yedei chayvaso mitoira shemei kona. Someone listening to the Megilah fulfills obligation because of the halachic principle of shemei kona. Listening is like answering. The kilu korebatzim, as if you yourself are reading the Megilah. Then your shemei kona ain pagam tarubas kolacher. When it comes to listening, is like answering. There's no blemish of a mixture of another voice. So this would be one reason that you asked for around 10 minutes ago when we started this difference between shofar and Megillah. Hakol hu mikayach hakoyre v'chuli yisodish amaramba zehu she'ikr hu she'akol yavo mikayach bar chiyuva. What's this footnote 2 going on? This footnote 2 is going on. When it comes to Megillah, you'd be good because the voice is coming from someone who is obligated. Coming from someone who's obligated. Mikra Megillah shamitzveh kriya. By Megillah, the mitzvah is the reading. So therefore, filu im hakol shel hakoyre ba derech magbir kol telephone yoitzin v'zeh yidei chava. So even if the voice is coming through a phone, you fulfill your obligation with this. Kevan shesoiv kol sof ba mikayach hakoyre shuhu bar chiyuva. Since at the end of the day, this is coming from the person who is reading, who is fully obligated. V'kol sheba mikayach hakoyre nechshav kekol mamish. And as long as it is coming from the voice of someone who is reading, it's considered like his voice, even with the microphone. Lenient approach by Megilah. Ubazeh nistiru divrei hama'arim hamikra Megilah de magri kol telephone. This reconciles those who protest, who are upset about the Megilah, hearing the Megilah through a microphone or a phone. Because others say that no, when you listen through a microphone, a speaker system, a phone, you don't hear the voice of a person, it's another voice, and it's it's like something that was already recorded. Certainly you wouldn't feel your obligation if you play a recording of someone reading the Megillah. Aval if according to what we said, it's incomparable to a recording where the voice stops. The strength of the voice stops. It's not a live situation. However, when it comes to a microphone or a phone, telephone, even if you're going to say it's not the person's voice, it's another voice, and nevertheless, even so, the strength of the voice of the person never interrupted. And you're only going to hear the voice when he's reading. If he stops reading, you won't hear the voice. It's all coming from the voice of the person who said it. That's right. And it's considered his voice. So we have a major machlokas over here. Based on what we learned yesterday, we did it pretty fast yesterday also. We have a major machlokas. This is basically all of this highlighted over here, from over here to over here, looked up everything except for the Minchas Shlomo, which is the longest. Looked up every single source. See exactly where they're coming from. Before we do the Minchas Shlomo,
I guess you should read along with the Megillah also, just in case it gets cut out from there.
Yeah, of course. That would just be if you had an interruption. Same exact thing that you have to read. Yeah, 100%. We are going to see the Minchas Shlomo tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem. It's fast day. That's right. Let's continue. Wanted to make some headway in this, and tomorrow we have to finish everything because it's Purim the next day. We have to. So we have a lot of work to do. Minchas Shlomo, Rav Avadi's Tshuvas. Let's see over here. It's very interesting that the Dirshu did not quote what Rav Avad Yosef says about this topic. He has 3 different Tshuvas where he talks about it at length, and it's interesting.
How do you come out?
One thing at a time. We're doing this now. We're going to see one thing at a time.
Okay.
All right, let's see what he says. This is, I didn't even know how to present all of this information because it was too much. And if it was going to get dragged out too much, no one's going to be interested. No one's going to listen. And it's a lot of it's also repetitive. Some of this far as I had no clue how to present this. This is a complicated area. I'm doing the best I could over here.
Excellent. Okay, good job.
Okay, shkach. Okay, let's take a look at the Piskei Tshuvos over here. Gedoili haposkim achronim donu b'sheilo shenisoru b'doros achronim. This is a very nice summary of the topic that we're doing. The great rabbis of this generation, they delve into this halachic question, this shaila. Im efshar losois yidei choivo b'shmiyas kriyas Megillah yidei ramkol del telephone or b'shidur chai. Could a person fulfill their obligation of listening to Megillah through a microphone, a phone, or a live stream broadcast? V'rubam he'elu le'eser. Most of them say it's prohibited. Yehakol hanishmal yidei haramkol v'hatelephone v'kiyotzi b'zeh, because a voice that is heard through a microphone or a phone and similar to that, Zoom, whatever it is, eino kol ha'adam klal. It's not the voice of the person. So look at what he says over here. This is Rabbi Rabinowitz, someone who researched this topic, wrote about it at length, has lengthy footnotes over here. He learned all the tshuvas that we're learning. And he says over here, I wish I could double underline or highlight that thing. Rubam he'elu le'eser. Most say that this is prohibited. So if you could sum up what we learned about yesterday for 20 minutes, what we're learning about today, what we're learning about tomorrow in 3 words, most say prohibited. That's how you sum it up. And that you should not do it. Footnote 14. Rishon hadiburim bazehu. The first person to discuss this is none other than the Marsham in his Das Torah, which we saw inside. We saw that inside yesterday, the Das Torah. He says that it's going to be prohibited based on what the Halach Ketano says. That was with the echo with the cave business. It's worse than an echo with the cave. Right? You heard it outside the cave. It's a new voice. It has nothing to do with the person who's talking. Messiah Marsham concludes Shahu Adin be telephone, the garmaphone. Telephone also wouldn't work. Lahavan Einyan, to understand this matter, Behechrach Lahavan Lashon Azov, the Hagon Rav Shelomo Zalman Auerbach. We have to understand Behechrach, we must need Lahavi to quote the language, the golden language of Rav Shelomo Zalman Auerbach. This was around a week ago when we started learning the Shilos Veteshuvos Minchas Yitzchak. And I said, we have to figure out another way to do it. This is too heavy. There's too much going on. And I scrapped the whole recording. Scrapped it. I didn't put it on. I said it has to be presented in a better way. We're going to do it tomorrow. We're going to save the best for the last, get the most depth for the last, and the best understanding of mechanically how the microphone works and why it would or would not work. So he's going to quote what Rav Shelomo Zalman Auerbach says. All right. We'll come back to that footnote in a moment. As you could tell, he kind of keeps going over there. But he says that most people say that it's not the voice of the person. Back up top, yeah? Elakol hamachshir shekoilir eskola adam umahavko legolim chashmeilim hameridim. What do these devices do? These electronic devices? What they do is the voice of the device. Kol hamachshir shekoilir eskola adam. This device collects the voice of a person and switches it to electronic sound waves, Vishuv Noitzer Kol Chodesh, which then creates a new voice. We're going to be learning about this more when we see Rav Shelomo Zalman Auerbach's tshuva. Kol, his response, Kol Chashmali Matchiti. This is basically a voice of a electric voice that it gets switched into. That's what this is over here. This word Matichi means, I forgot this word. I looked it up the other day. This is a modern Hebrew word. I actually asked Israelis if they knew some of the words. We're going to learn about that. Matichi is metallic. No, that's something else. Okay, we'll have to see more about that. V'harizeh kishameya kriyas ha-Megillah mimachshiri hakleta. It's as if you're just listening to a recording. So certainly that's not considered that you heard it from someone who's obligated if you just listen to a recording. According to this conclusion. Someone who is listening, who has difficulty listening, and he could only listen through a hearing device in his ear, would not fulfill his obligation of listening to Megillah. He would need to either read it himself or remove it and sit close, if he could hear it without it. But some are lenient in this regard. Because even take aside all these new electric devices that we're talking about over here, the microphones, the phones. Sometimes
if he started listening to the Megillah with the hearing aid and he realized that he couldn't hear it and he wanted to lain it on his own, would he say a new bracha?
if he heard the bracha, then he definitely wouldn't, because he heard the bracha.
All right.
Yeah. Heard the bracha, heard the bracha. But listen to what this is saying. This is saying that even if someone over here, right, isn't using an electric device. In kola adam magilo isn't a shemer rak ali de gali avi. The voice over here is only coming to his ears through the air. It's through the air. And there's a slight delay. Might be milliseconds, but there's a delay. Even so, according to everyone, it's still considered the fellow's voice. Who's reading the Megillah? Im Kain, Gam Ali De Ramkol the telephone. Shipolosim Liklo says Gali Avir Elu. So too then, if that's true, then so too, since that's true, so too regarding a microphone or a phone, that their job is that they collect these sound waves, they collect the sound waves and increases it in a way that it could be heard from far away. That is considered like an echo, which is mixed with the voice of a person, mamish, the actual voice of a person. It's possible that you could fulfill your obligation. So what he's saying over here is that just like regular sound works, and so too with these electronics, it should definitely work over here. Even according to those who hold this way, lo hetir el b'shasa dachat. They only allow this in a pressing situation. Some say, sha'af im nisbor kisvaras hamekilin. Even if we're going to hold like those who are lenient, hanizkar that I mentioned earlier, mikol makom yesh lihimana mekach. Nevertheless, you should refrain from doing this. Even if you're going to go like those who are lenient, you shouldn't do it. Do not use a microphone for Megillah. Do not use your phone. Do not use your Skype. Your Zoom, rather. Not even for women. And that is the custom to prohibit this. Only someone who it's very difficult for him to hear. Only those who have great difficulty hearing through the hearing aid, they could be lenient with the hearing aid. They have great difficulty. Especially if these people with the hearing aids could get away with standing next to the person reading the Megillah and remove their hearing aids, that should be done. Right?
Is that what that's like mean?
Rather, the hearing aid assists to make the hearing better. So what he's saying over here is that
You'd be allowed to have the hearing aid in as long as
if you can't get near the Baal Korah, you could still fulfill your obligation with the hearing aid, but it's not the preferable.
It's not preferable.
It's best to just go next to him. It's logical.
Like Kriyas Torah, what do we hold by a hearing aid?
Kriyas Torah, I think it'll be similar halacha.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Very stringent about that.
I think so.
Hmm.
Could be
I'm not in that
right. The question is Megillah more stringent than laning? That's the question. 5 minutes. What can we do in 5 minutes? And we have this footnote. I don't know if we could powerhouse this. I don't want to rush it. Let's do it. Rav Shelomo Zalman Auerbach says in the Shilos Veteshuvos Minchas Shlomo, after he has length about how he conducted Alpi Mumchim Ba'ofen Pu'ulas Haramkom V'Telephone. He says he discussed with the experts in microphones and phones. He concludes and says, this type of listening has a halachic status of when they would wave the flags in Alexandria in Egypt. because the room was so big when they were davening. So they waved flags. Black flag is amen. Blue is Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. They wave flags that people can know what they're up to in davening. The chashav raki yodeya be'eza bracha hashat soimed v'liyoser. It's considered okay. You know what bracha the chazans happen, not more. Yekevan shekain ein lanos amen al shum bracha sheshamei derech telephone radio. Accordingly, you wouldn't even answer amen if you heard someone say a bracha on the phone or a radio.
What if you?
That's right.
If you don't know the bracha they're saying in Alexandria, only because you can't hear them, they're only waving.
Different reason over here. De'enenu kol madaber al arak hamamavarna hamachona yemedaberes. It's only, and this is the term that I asked the Israelis about, and they didn't even know. And I asked Rabbeim about, I asked Rabbanim about. No one knew this term because obviously no one learned this tshuva from the Mincha Shlomo. The mamavarna is a membrane which is part of the microphone. We're going to come back to that when we learn the tshuva.
Learned that before.
Yes. This was in the
Why
scrapped
is it any
recording.
different than waving the flags in when you didn't even hear the bracha?
Because it's not his voice.
You
It's someone else's voice.
You heard in Alexandria, they heard him. They heard the shliach tzibur.
They might have not heard him, but at least they knew the bracha.
So why would that be any different than the microphone signaling to you when the bracha is? Because granted, it's not the voice, but at least it's signaling to you where he is.
Because there's he doesn't quote over here. That's why it's dangerous when you just learn things like this and you're learning just the footnotes and Baruch Hashem, you're doing at least that. But if you're not looking things up, it's dangerous. The reason that he comes along and he says over here is because no. There's a Beis Yosef in Siman Nun Hey, and it's pasking. There's a Yeshom, and there are those who say in the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Nun Hey that if between you and a person saying the bracha, there's either feces or idolatry, you're not allowed to answer amen, and you can't have a connection to that. So therefore, that's the issue over here. Also, that's another issue that he didn't quote over here. So he's only quoting bits and pieces. That's the issue. So it's another person's voice. It's considered like it is an amen in null and void. V'rakim omed, only if you're standing in the shul or near him and you hear chazar sashatz or another bracha through a microphone, so then you could get dragged after the seaboard and you could answer amen. Midi dahavi, similar to the Alexandria in Egypt. However, it's impossible to fulfill your obligation with this listening in anything that you're obligated to listen to from a human. And he concludes, those people who think otherwise, they only think that because they don't understand the intricacies of the technology behind the microphones and the Zoom and the telephones. They have thoughts that are hevel, it's vanity, it's foolishness, their thoughts. They think shechuti telephone radio, that the cords from the phone and the radio, molichin mamish is kol adam, it's the exact same voice. It's not true. And then in the footnote, he quotes the Chazon Ish, who said about this that he was lenient. Surprise, surprise. The Chazon Ish was lenient. And he says, no, that is considered the voice of the person speaking. But Rav Shelomo Zalman Auerbach concludes by saying it's a chiddush gadol vein meivin also. It's a big insight, a lenient insight, and I don't understand it, he said. And then he quotes all other tshuvas that talk about it. The Mincha Shlomo we saw in Eretz Tzvi, Shari Halacha. Here's the Yechavadas. Chavadas in two places, that's Ravaja. And then here's the Yabia Omer, which we're going to see inside. Actually, most of the tshuva, it's a long tshuva, it's close to like 10 pages or something. But for some reason, the Otzar Chachma doesn't have the Ravaja's farm, some political reason. They have it on the Bar Ilan side, and I don't know how many actual pages in the Sefer. I didn't look at it in my set at home, I just did it on the computer. But so it's a long tshuva. Most of it talks about microphones on Shabbos, but at the end it talks about Megilah. So he over there also discusses this, and he says that you could answer amen. In fact, if it's live stream, similar to the flags in Alexandria and Egypt, right? It would be a similar thing, like what you're just saying. The interruption of the idolatry or the filth, the poop, whatever it is. So efshar sheyesh makom she'atzivim espalim lebeino einin ma'akiv. Ayin sham berucha. He says it could be that it's not an issue. He doesn't say why over here, so we'll have to see. Maybe he's going to go into that. However, if you hear from a recording, certainly you will not answer. Then he quotes the Shilos and Chuvas, the halachas katan, the Mishnah halachas that we saw. Kinyan Torah, we didn't see that. Moadim zmanim. So you see a lot of people that are talking about. Here's another Yechavas Das. Most